The Indianapolis Colts. The Indianapolis Colts, I've discussed earlier in the offseason that I think they should be one of the teams to go all in to try to get an Aaron Rodgers, because I really feel like they're a quarterback and a wide receiver away from being a true contender for the Super Bowl. But me realizing that this is probably unrealistic has me saying that, okay, that's probably not going to happen. But what I do realize is that Carson Wentz is probably not going to be the guy. So, number one, what's quarterback going to be? Are they going to trade Carson Wentz and bring in a Jimmy Garoppolo or a Jameis Winston or somebody of that nature? Are they going to try to get a Gardner Minshew, my guy? Or are they going to draft somebody? Because I'm not sure they're going to be able to trade for a Kirk Cousins or a Matt Ryan. It does kind of feel like the Colts are going to try to go with another 1 year type of deal, but just somebody different than Carson Wentz. So my thought is they're going to try to go with somebody for 1 year, middle of the road quarterback, but he's more conservative, more of a game manager than Carson Wentz. Offensively, wide receiver, wide receiver, wide receiver, wide receiver. Other than Michael Pittman Jr., your wide receiver position stinks. You need a wide receiver too. And I think you could go out and with the money that you have, especially if you don't go out and get a Russell Wilson or an Aaron Rodgers, you could go and get an Allen Robinson for your receiving core. You could go and get a Chris Godwin. You could go and get one of these top receivers in free agency. And I think it's worth it, because if you had a Michael Pittman and then let's say an Allen Robinson, that would make a middle of the road quarterback a lot better. And then you've got a run game that's powerful and that a defense has to respect. So 2 receivers with that would be very nice. The offensive line is not as good as it was, right? You've got Quentin Nelson, you've got Ryan Kelly back, you've got Braden Smith. Those 3 players are good. The left tackle and the right guard position, I think they could look to re-sign Mark Lewinsky just to keep that rapport. The left tackle position, maybe they bring back Eric Fisher, but they could also draft somebody at left tackle, and I wouldn't be surprised by that. So tackle or Matt Pryor, they could sign Matt Pryor, and then that would be what I would do. I would sign Matt Pryor, and then I would pick somebody in the draft, and I'd let Eric Fisher go somewhere else. Tight end, I'd like to have Mo Alley Cox back, but it never felt like they were really utilizing him all that much, so he might walk and go somewhere else. I don't think that's a huge loss. You've got your 2-headed monster at running back with Hines and Taylor, obviously. Defensively, a lot of backups that are free agents. Teray, Stallworth, Franklin, Sendejo, Odom, all these guys are backups. But you've probably got to look towards the edge position. A nice pass rusher off the edge would be a huge get for this team. Somebody like Randy Gregory would be a great fit, I think. Maybe somebody, lesser like Nwosu wouldn't be bad. Derek Barnett would be okay. But the Colts, typically, they rather go big or they go home. And what I mean by that is they go really cheap or really expensive. They don't really go in between. So somebody at the top of the market, maybe like Randy Gregory, or they could go through the draft or low-key veteran. Maybe like Arden Key would be a good fit. Linebacker's good. I don't think they really need much, maybe depth. Cornerback could use some work. Kenny Moore is good. Rocky Sin's okay. Isaiah Rodgers is okay. They could use another perimeter corner. Xavier Rhodes was still solid, but I mean, it would be nice for them to have a number 1 corner. They just don't really need number 1 corners. I think it would honestly be better for them if they had a better safety, right? Because they've got Blackman and Willis who are solid. I think that's probably going to be what they stay with, but they kind of use their safeties. Their safeties are almost more important than their corners. But I think Casey Hayward is a great fit for Gus Bradley's system. Carlton Davis would be nice in that system. Obviously, J.C. Jackson's good in every system. You're not looking at the Bryce Callahans or the DJ Reeds because they're nickel corners. Maybe Joe Hayden could be good, honestly, in that system. Levi Wallace has played in that system. Jason Verrett, Kyle Fuller, somebody that I haven't really mentioned, I think would work too. So, yeah, you could look for a corner this free agency. So mostly defensively, pass rusher and corner. That's really it. Everything else is solid. And then depth. And then offensively, big-time receiver, please. Re-sign Matt Pryor. Draft a tackle. Re-sign Mark Glowinski. Bring in Allen Robinson or Chris Godwin. That would be awesome. And that's the way to go for the Colts. I'm not sure exactly what they're going to do at quarterback, but it does kind of feel like they might trade for like Jimmy Garoppolo or somebody like that I think would be a solid fit with Frank Reich. I would really like to see them get like Matt Ryan, but I don't think that's going to happen. So that's the Colts. What's up, Bodo? How you doing? He says, go Steelers, draft a quarterback and the offensive line. So you're on draft quarterback. That's what I said as well. I just did the Steelers, by the way, and we are about, I want to say, a little bit past halfway through. I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 teams left. What happened to the camera? The camera fuzzy? I think it's okay. Is it okay now? I think it's fine. Will any team go all in for a quarterback, asks Rob. I don't know. I don't think so. Unless it's Aaron Rodgers. I could see maybe the Broncos. It doesn't really feel like anybody is, though. The rumors have died down, which maybe it means that the team is, but it feels like nobody is, honestly, and that sucks. Gonna be honest with you. The Houston Texans are next, which, just read the graphic, guys. I don't really know what to say about this team, to be honest with you. If I was the GM of this team, I honestly don't think Nick Caserio did a bad job last year when all he did was sign veterans to one-year contracts. Like, when I'm looking at this depth chart right now, there is a incredible amount of red on the screen. It is ridiculous. And red on our lads just indicates they're a free agent. They probably have 30 free agents on this roster that I'm looking at right now. So we start with quarterback. It's going to be Davis Mills, most likely. I don't think they're going to draft anybody this year. They're going to wait till next year. If I was the Texans, this is what I would do. Try to trade Deshaun Watson for everything possible. Trade him for every pick imaginable. Have Davis Mills start. And then try to suck and get the first pick. That's what I would do. I'm not going to lie. Now, offensive line, I don't think is that terrible. I've certainly seen worse. You've got Tunsil and Howard, and Lane Taylor's okay. Justin McCray's below average. Not great, but I've seen worse, okay? So I think they're not in terrible shape. Tight end, Brevin Jordan, Pharaoh Brown. I mean, Jordan Akins is a free agent. These guys are not household names by any means. They could use an upgrade there. I don't think there's really anybody. Like, tight end is not a position. When you're the Texans, you're not looking to get a tight end that's going to change your team. Okay, maybe you look for a receiver, but it's going to be really hard to entice a top receiver in free agency to come to your team. So you're probably going to have to draft one. That might be what they do, honestly. They might look to draft a receiver or a big-time defensive playmaker that they can build their offense or their defense around. They could trade Brandon Cooks, and if it was me, I love Brandon Cooks, but if I was the Texans, I would trade him to a team that needs a receiver. So let's say you could get a second-round pick from the Raiders. I would trade Brandon Cooks for a second-round pick to the Raiders. That's what I would do. Clear that money out, get more money in, get a pick for a younger player they can use on your offensive, defensive line, or, maybe a younger receiver, right? Running back position, I think they could continue to go with the older veteran like the Rex Burkhead, the David Johnsons, the guys that they've had. Pick up those guys again. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. They actually played pretty well. Especially Burkhead was kind of surprising at the end of the year. Nico Collins, I think you've got something in him, so he might be part of the solution there. But yeah, move on from Cooks and bring in new, younger blood. Quarterback, Mills for now until you get that first pick. Offensive line, keep as much intact as possible. Keep bringing in those low-key, like one-year contract guys at guard and center and try to find the diamond in the rough. That's what I would be looking to do. So to give some names here, I'm only get the names that PFF shows me, but so if I was the Texans, I would be trying to sign, if Alex Kappa was affordable, somebody like that. Somebody like, kind of maybe a little bit undervalued, that's a little bit younger, and maybe he's not quite hit his peak. Who else? There's some tackles maybe. Like you could maybe go for like a Cornelius Lucas type or a Cam Robinson. Somebody like that, like guys with upside that maybe could get better because you're just really bad. Like, let's be honest. And then defensively, you're fuck. Yeah. Defensively, I think Jacob Martin you should re-sign. Malik Collins wasn't terrible. I think they're gonna do the same thing they did last year. Sign all these guys one-year contracts. Grugier Hill actually played really well for you guys, and he got hurt, which sucked. Same thing could be said about, Hewitt and Kirksey aren't terrible. So defensively, talking about their scheme, their defense is very cover 2 based because they brought in Lovie Smith. So they're going to want to bring in fast linebackers, speed rushers, smaller interior defensive linemen, and probably not as much capital on corner. They're also going to want cover safeties, right? Because they play a lot of cover 2. Tampa 2, right? So think of the Tampa Bay Bucks from 2002. That's kind of what they're trying to mold themselves after, right? So they're going to go cheaper at corner. They might spend a little bit of money at linebacker. Checking free agency. Aluakon would be one target that I would maybe look out for. Alexander Johnson would be another that they could potentially bring in. Safeties are important for them with range. So Marcus Williams, if they want to throw money at him. Justin Reed, bringing him back wouldn't be a bad idea. But yeah, the Texans are really tough, man. I think you've got to try to establish an offensive and defensive line, especially in these systems, and then work everything from there. Get rid of the good assets that you have for picks and to clear up cap, like Brandon Cooks, and then just throw a bunch of one-year contracts at the lesser positions to try and find some diamonds in the rough. There are a couple players here that will, be part of your future, but there aren't a ton. So that's the concerning part. So this team's got a long way to go, and I think really their rebuild is going to start. It's already started, but it's really going to begin once they trade Deshaun Watson, whenever that is. So that's the Texans. It's hard to talk about a team that literally needs everything. Like, I could talk about every single player on this team and how they could upgrade it. It's just really difficult to do. So, yeah, I feel bad for Texans fans, but I think next year is going to be the year where you could get significantly better. If you get a good high draft pick next year, could do some wonders for this team. All right. The Tennessee Titans are next. The Titans, number 1 seed in the AFC, disappointing exit with the first round loss in the divisional round. The Titans are in not a terrible position cap-wise. Am I correct? No, well, they're negative money, but they could get to positive fairly easily. Now, the thing with the Titans, though, is that they are kind of aging and their window is closing a little bit. So Ryan Tannehill showed some cracks in the armor, so to speak, in the playoffs. He was kind of the reason they lost. So he's their quarterback. That's not changing anytime soon. but he needs to play better in the big moment. Derrick Henry fully healthy is going to be huge for them. But they do have questions on the offensive line. Taylor Lewan is getting older. He's still there. Roger Saffold's getting older. He's still there. So you're not replacing them quite yet. Ben Jones is older. And if I'm the Titans, Ben Jones is a great player. But because you're already so old at left tackle, left guard, you don't want to be old at center, left guard, left tackle with all of these guys on contracts. That to me would be a bad idea. I understand that you're kind of in this window to win, but you've got to be able to balance it. So I think replacing Ben Jones in the draft would be my opinion, my way to go. Right tackle, if you guys could sign a younger right tackle, that would be nice. You know, Trent Brown would be a perfect fit. Orlando Brown would be a perfect fit, but it does feel like both those guys are going to end up on their teams. Looking at tackles, they could be in on Teron Armstead, but I don't think they have enough money. I think they'd love to have him. There's no question about that. Maybe they look a little bit low-key with a guy like Cam Robinson. But they could also look to the draft for right tackle. They've tried to find a solution in the draft for many seasons. They've done a really good job at finding those low-key tackles, though. And they play pretty well for them, at least in the run game. Julio's getting older. They spent capital on him. He's still there. A.J. Brown's a beast. You're really working this offense around A.J. Brown and Derrick Henry. Your tight end position, all of your players are free agents. Ferkser being the headliner there. Obviously, Jonnu Smith left last offseason. So a tight end, I think they're going to bring back Ferkser. I don't think they're going to spend a lot of money on tight end, but there are some interesting options. I just feel like given, they don't use the tight end a heck of a lot, so I don't see them really trying to spend huge money on it either. So I think replenishing the offense with some younger talent on the offensive line would be the way to go here. And then adding a number 3 receiver, that's where you could maybe add a veteran, right? So maybe you look to wide receiver for a slot guy like Crowder, I brought up a bunch of times. Maybe this is a team that targets Juju. He's still younger. Maybe they target Christian Kirk or Russell Gage or Emmanuel Sanders, who's older, obviously. Braxton Berrios is another guy that they could target. So I'd look for a slot guy, preferably younger, but doesn't have to be younger. Given that this team is still sort of in contention, I think the main place to get younger is on the offensive line. Defensively, Jeffrey Simmons is a stud. Denico Autry was a nice find for them. Bud Dupree, they spent a lot of money on, which I still don't like that move, even though he's played okay. Linebacker, I think they're probably going to let go of Rashaan Evans, potentially also Jayon Brown. I'd like to have one of those guys back if I'm the Titans. Harold Landry is the priority, though. Keeping Harold Landry with Jeffrey Simmons is the priority. Kevin Byard in the back end. Corner is going to be a position I don't think they do a lot at because Christian Fulton, Elijah Molden, and who's the kid they drafted in the first round? Caleb Farley. I think those guys are going to be their future, so I think they're going to keep those 3 and not really spend a ton on corner. So I think they're looking towards linebacker and, maybe safety. But I think mostly you're looking at younger offensive line, a 3rd receiver, maybe a tight end, linebacker. That's really it. They don't have a ton of money. They're kind of just trying to fill the holes of what they've had and preferably trying to take some of those older guys that are going to leave and make those guys a little bit younger. And I think that's the way to go for the Titans. All right, next, to end the AFC South, we've got the Jacksonville Jags. Is everybody still with me here live? Thank you guys for watching, by the way. If you haven't already, make sure you do Gronk spike that like button. We got the Jacksonville Jaguars. So the Jacksonville Jags are next. Where is Jacksonville? Jacksonville. So Jacksonville. All right. Jacksonville is obviously one of the weaker teams in the NFL from a roster perspective. Number 1 pick last year. Not great in terms of how they performed last year. There is concern about Trevor Lawrence. Hopefully the solution at coach is there with Doug Peterson, who can get some better out of Trevor Lawrence. So I think the number one priority for the Jacksonville Jags is helping Trevor Lawrence. And I think the best way to help Trevor Lawrence is get him a number one wide receiver. So for Jacksonville, you could do this through the draft. You could also do this through free agency. Now, because you have Trevor Lawrence, is an enticing name for wide receivers out there. You could try to go for Adams and Godwin and Williams and Gallup and try to bring back DJ Chark, who I thought was playing well early in the year before he got hurt. Those guys should all be targeted by Jacksonville. Trying to find that number one wide receiver, to me, is the top priority for Trevor Lawrence. Somebody that he can rely on, that he can throw to in the red zone on third down. Huge. Now, on top of that, you're looking to secure your left tackle spot. This could be achieved in free agency with Teron Armstead, with Trent Brown, with Orlando Brown. This could also be achieved through the draft as well. I think you let Andrew Norwell walk given his age. You've also got to factor in that Walker Little, you picked in the second round last year, could take over at left tackle or right tackle. You could also use an upgrade at right tackle with Jawan Taylor, but you probably just let that slide for now. Offensive line, though, is going to need some money spent there and some capital spent in the draft. But number one wide receiver and then left tackle. Those are the two top things. You've got running backs. You've got complementary players. You've got some offensive linemen. Tight end would be nice. Like Mike Gesicki would be a nice addition here for this team. I feel like a move tight end that can also, make a difference in the receiving game would be awesome. Dalton Schultz could be a target as well. Those two top tight ends could also get contracts from Jacksonville. Defensively, you need a pass rusher to complement Josh Allen. Linebacker Miles Jack is good. Other than that, though, you could use a little bit of an upgrade, but that's not like a pressing need, especially I think in this system. Preferably, you moved on from Joe Schobert last year, and that was because I don't think they wanted a huge amount of capital in the linebacker position. So they went cheaper with Damian Wilson, who's a free agent. They could bring him back if they like. But I think getting an edge rusher to complement Josh Allen is big, and getting secondary players, corners, safeties. And number one corner would be awesome. If you want to go get Carlton Davis or a J.C. Jackson, you've got the money to do so. And that would be a huge difference maker. Now, you already have Shaq Griffin, who actually played really well for you last year. Safety could also, I think safety is probably more likely where they attack, just given that there's more of them. And they need a safety, I think, a little bit more than they need corner, to be honest. I do like Cisco, is it? Andre, I can't speak. Andre Cisco, who they drafted from Syracuse last year, I think is a player, but they could go after Marcus Williams. They could go after Marcus May, still in their primes. Justin Reed, these guys are all playmakers at safety that could be massive upgrades at free safety specifically. So corner or safety, they're going to get one big player. They need to. They need to try at least. And one edge rusher. And there's a lot of edge rushers out there as well. And Jacksonville hasn't been shy in the past for going after front seven players. So players like Chandler Jones, who's like a hired gun out there, Randy Gregory, Emmanuel Ogbah, Hassan Reddick, Harold Landry. I would try to go for guys that are younger still, Nwosu. Maybe Lorenzo Carter would fit this defense fairly well. But I'm looking more for that tandem with Josh Allen. So somebody dynamic, somebody that's a threat, somebody that can get to the quarterback. Maybe a veteran. So Jacksonville, they're kind of like the Jets to me. They have some good, they have some bad. They're not unfixable, but you've got to hit the top end playmakers. The problem with the Jags right now is they've got a lot of solid and they don't have a lot of great. They need a great receiver. They need a great left tackle. They need great corner, a great safety. They need more playmakers. They've got a lot of solid. They need more great. And that's what I'd be looking to do is Probably looking to spend more money on a select few rather than a large sum of players. That's just the way I look at it for Jacksonville this year, because last year they attacked a lot of the depth, a lot of resurfacing and restructuring the depth. Now is the time to get some studs to surround Trevor Lawrence. That's just my opinion.